Well, the first week of Worlds 2024's main event has come to a close, and already we have gone off script. We've got tournament favourites hanging on by the skin of their teeth, and a certain Faker and Team 1 have turned around a bad start to put themselves on the edge of qualification to the next round. And that's not to mention all the other crazy games and upsets we've seen so far. Let's get stuck in.
Before we hop into today's episode, I want to thank our sponsor, Opera GX, and their brand new feature, Riot Corner. Opera GX is an official sponsor of Worlds 2024, and they're kicking off Worlds with some sweet new in-browser features. In Riot Corner, you'll get access to a schedule of all the matches, a co-streaming hub to jump in and watch, and limited time drops exclusive to GX users at lolesports.com. I can't stress this enough, guys. This is a one-stop shop for absolutely everything you need to keep up with Worlds, baked right into an already awesome gaming browser. So go download Opera GX right now via the link in the description below. Using that link, your browser will download with the official mods, and you'll have access to Riot Corner as soon as you hop in the browser. Thanks to Opera GX for sponsoring our exclusive World show, The Last Hit, and supercharging our coverage this year. Now, let's get back into today's video.
Alright, so going into World's Swiss stage, there was a fairly agreed upon power ranking. Gen.G, Bilibili and Hanwha Life were seen by many as the top tier, this year's MSI winner, as well as the LPL's and LCK's summer split champions. These were the big three that were all expected to fairly comfortably advance out of this 16-team Swiss stage, and for Gen.G, that's basically what happened last week. A cagey game versus Weibo saw the Korean legends dig in, and after snagging themselves Elder, were finally able to edge out the LPL's 4th seed. Their match versus Top Esports featured a perfect pincer teamfight to crush their opponents and eventually close out the game. The first game of their best of 3 versus fellow LCK giant Hanwha Life had a rough start. Gen.G picked off Peanut, but a godly wombo combo denied them Soul and the win.
Oh, delighted! Zeka! Holy go on, Viper!
Do not doubt Delight, or you will find yourself.
Holy Delight just won Hanwha Life a game, maybe.
A close game 2 looked like it could go either way, but Gen.G started turning the screws to secure themselves Soul and the game soon after. Game 3 saw Pays put on a stellar Twitch performance, with Chovy later picking up a quadra on Ari on their way to a Game 3 victory and the knockout stage. Now, apart from that loss, Hanwha Life won their previous 2 matches. Firstly against PSG, where Doran put on an absolute Gnar masterclass, and then a scrappy game where G2 kept taking Barons against all odds, but a scaling Smolder with Infernal Soul eventually got Hanwha Life over the line, leaving them with a 2-1 record and one more win now needed to advance. LPL's 3rd seed LNG have surpassed many people's expectations as the only team other than Gen.G to go 3 wins and 0 losses. They were dead even with Team Liquid for a while in their first game, but some sloppy mistakes from the North Americans created a gold lead they couldn't recover from. And while we're on Team Liquid, as much as we all like our annual NA bashing, they've looked decent at times, early in that LNG game and again against Weibo, but their mid-game discipline does seem to be lacking.
APAs is dead. No. No. No.
Back to LNG, they looked second best versus LPL champions Bilibili until a monstrous Yone ult from Scout completely swung the game for LNG, who never gave the gold lead back and took the upset win. A series of picks and skirmishes got them ahead in the first game of their best of 3 versus DK, including Scout Silas looking absolutely terrifying with stolen alley ults, and LNG eventually pulling off a juicy flank to crush DK against the wall and take the win. Scout switched to Galio for game 2 and ended up 4-0-4 before 15 minutes in a game which DK kept close thanks to the likes of aiming Ziggs, but they had no answers once LNG secured Soul and began mowing them all down. So, the upshot of all of that is that Gen.G have qualified for the knockout stage. Not too much of a surprise there. They're current MSI champions. They've looked strong all year. We thought they would go far. They're already joined by LNG, who looked shaky for large parts of that first Team Liquid game, but pulled solid performances out of the bag versus Bilibili and DK to head to the knockouts. Then we've got Hanwha Life, who have looked strong. They're sitting at 2 wins, 1 loss, and that loss is only against Gen.G, which is understandable. But where's Bilibili? Where are the LPL Summer Champions? Well, we've already talked about their loss to LNG. They also won versus Mad Lions, which gave them a 1-win, 1-loss record, so although their third game wasn't an elimination match, they really needed to win it. And for that, they were drawn against T1. You might have heard of them. The reigning world champions had fallen to top esports in their first game, and for many people, this was just a continuation of the shaky form that saw them barely qualify for Worlds this year as the LCK's 4th seed. A victory over Brazil's Pain Gaming would have done little to change that narrative in the minds of any doubters. But against the odds, T1 managed to beat BLG. We had Sean Wetselaar on the ground at Worlds to cover the game and speak to some of the players after, including Faker.
So I think it's important before we get started to just say that nobody really had their money on T1 going into this match. And it might sound weird to say that at the World Championship, but they're coming in as the 4th seed. They've had a lot of struggles throughout this year. Whereas BLG are this giant from the LPL. They're one of the tournament favorites by everyone's consensus. They're coming in after an incredibly dominant year. Almost everyone expected BLG to take this, but T1 got off to a surprisingly good start. T1 built up a modest gold lead and they're stacking dragons, but then Bin on his signature Jax gets this really flashy solo kill onto Zeus that looks like it might start to turn the tide and transform him into this real monster in the side lanes. But then this happens.
Ulti, 15-second cooldown, looking to lock up Elk. Where's the bomb gonna go? Carrier trying to dissuade. Guma knocked back to the wall, the flash forward, gonna try to finish on the first AD carry. Now he's on the hunt for Night. Guma! Popping off in the clutch moment, but Bin ready to turn it right back. That's the ultimate counter-strike is there, but it's Bin versus all of T1, baby, and that is not enough.
T1 managed to take this seemingly impossible situation, this 4v5, and turn it into a one-team fight that nets them Baron. And at that point, the momentum just completely shifts. BLG, they sort of delay the inevitable by preventing Soul Point, but T1 are able to chase them down afterwards, and it's not that long until the game is just over. And it's a pretty poor performance from a team that so many people had as the favorites coming into this event. And when we talked to Bin and Faker after the match, that's exactly what they told us.
我觉得的话，我们队可能就是现在没有我之前想象的这么就是打那么好吧，就是可能我们还是有一些失误，很多坏习惯吧，然后很多做得不好的地方，所以我们现在能做的就是继续努力吧，然后赢下面那场比赛。
PLG가 이제 리그에서 보여주던 경기력만큼은 나오고 있지 않은 것 같고요. 그리고 사실 뭐 스위스 스테이지에서는 좀 단판전이기 때문에 뭔가를 평가하기에는 너무 적은 경기라고 생각합니다.
With that, T1 are just one best of 3 from the quarterfinals, while BLG might be the scariest 1 and 2 seed in history. I would hate to be the team that draws them in the next round.
So, like Sean said, not only are tournament favourites BLG hanging on for dear life now with a 1 and 2 record, but T1, the reigning world champions that limped into this tournament and lost their first game, are now just one best of 3 victory against G2 from the knockout stage. G2 will be hoping they're facing the shaky T1 we've seen at times this year, and not the unstoppable anime heroes they have the ability to become. Faker and friends will be feeling pretty good though, winning back-to-back games after that first loss. It has given them a tiny bit of breathing room and momentum in this brutal but exciting new format. Perhaps we're starting to see T1's Worlds buff kick in. We have talked before about their ability to step up in international tournaments and read the meta faster than others, but this 2-game winning streak is also a very small sample size, and you could argue that one of those victories is more down to BLG having an uncharacteristic slump. And speaking of BLG, They're already on their last life here. Their 1-2 record means they have to beat PSG on Friday or they are out. Worlds would be over for these title contenders before the knockout round even begins. Now, they're still heavy favourites versus PSG and they should be beating them any day of the week. I do really feel bad for PSG pulling BLG in the draw, but honestly, they were the favourites for their last 2 games as well and they lost those, so if I was PSG, that would be the hopium I'm huffing. Other qualification games yet to play include Thursday's top esports with their 1 loss to Gen.G versus DK, who have yet to prove themselves versus a non-Western team. That's followed by Hanwha Life versus FlyQuest, both number 1 seeds from their respective regions. Now Fly have put up good performances versus GAM and PSG, but they will honestly need to step things up about 10 levels to even put a dent in the Korean champions. And then on Saturday we'll have an elimination match between Fnatic and Weibo, both with 1 win and 2 losses. Weibo, last year's finalists, will go into that with some confidence, but Fnatic may have a dose of hopium given Weibo's loss to fellow EU squad G2. We'll finish off the round with the Team Liquid versus GAM elimination match. Liquid will be feeling good about avoiding some of the stronger teams, also on 1 win, 2 losses, but GAM, fresh off their Mad Lions victory, will fancy their chances too, with their CEO saying they embrace being the underdogs. It's also worth quickly noting the first 2 teams to exit the main event yesterday in Pain Gaming and Mad Lions. Pain Gaming put up a real fight in their elimination match versus Team Liquid, and at times the game was a lot closer than NA fans would have wanted.
We're giving soul again! Again! We're not giving soul again, bro. We gave soul again! We're giving soul again!
Pain did eventually fall to Team Liquid, but some behind-the-scenes footage from Team Liquid of Coach Spawn and Core JJ showed they know they have to step things up from this point onwards.
Play the game like 700 hours in the next 3 days. We're just not hitting buttons, bro.
Yeah, just button thing.
And it's just literally like we're flashing into walls, we're not actually hitting people with ultimates, we're teleporting in the shittest places ever. I just feel like we need to watch and play the game more.
Yeah.
For the viewers though, it got a lot of us excited to see what next season will look like when the LCS, Brazil and others merge to form this new Pan-Americas region. People will love games like that. And then there's Mad Lions, who were upset by GAM. Mad Lions crushed GAM in the first game of the best of 3, but lost the next 2 games in a disappointing fashion, including a failed lane swap, and despite securing Yone in the draft, perhaps the most busted champion at Worlds so far, it felt like they really failed to use him to his full potential.
My expectations were low, but holy
all that's left to say is enjoy today and tomorrow, because that's the only breather we're getting before we dive right back into the action. And in this round, we'll see 3 more teams advance and 3 more bow out. In next week's episode of The Last Hit, we'll be diving into the World's meta, which hasn't quite settled yet. It still feels like there's a lot up in the air, and even some teams aren't quite sure where it's going to land. We'll also have more on the ground coverage and exclusive interviews, so I'll see you all right back here in the next one.
Thanks for watching. If you want more content like this, hit the sub button and ring the notification bell. For unique bite-sized videos you won't find anywhere else, hit us up on our X, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.